The movie opens with the introduction of Asger, a Dutch emergency call operator. His days typically involve calls from people dealing with minor crises like drug abuse or break-ins. However, this routine changes dramatically one night as Asger, who initially appears disinterested and detached from his work, is jolted out of his boredom by a call that was anything but ordinary. A woman's voice, sweet and unfamiliar, refers to him as Sweetie, leading Asger to initially dismiss the call as a mistake. But as the conversation unfolds, he realizes the gravity of the situation. The caller is Iben, a woman in the midst of being abducted. Ingeniously, Iben disguised her plea for help as a call to her daughter, a clever trick to outsmart her kidnapper. Asger, now fully engaged, uses his skills to extract crucial information from Iben through a yes or no question. The tension escalates when the kidnapper grows suspicious and abruptly ends the call before Asger can ascertain Iben's exact location. Determined to rescue her, Asger uses the resources at his disposal, sending police officers to track a white van he believes is involved. Unfortunately, this leads to a dead end as they end up tailing the wrong vehicle. Undeterred, Asger delves deeper, discovering Iben's home phone number, and he calls and speaks with her young daughter Mathilde, who despite her tender age, provides pivotal information. It is through this conversation that Asger pieces together the shocking truth. Wait, hold on. Did you subscribe to our channel? Come on guys, you're here, you're watching the video. Help us out by hitting the subscribe button as it really helps out me and my team to make more videos for you guys. And now, let's get back to the recap. The kidnapper is none other than Michael, Mathilde's father, and Iben's ex-husband, and the father of her baby son. Armed with this new piece of information, Asger swiftly obtains Michael's car license plate number and relays it to the dispatch team. He shares further details gathered from Mathilde, including the alarming fact that Michael is armed with a knife and has a history of assault. Frustrated by the dispatch team's slow response and their inability to act immediately on the license plate information, Asger takes matters into his own hands. He arranges for patrol to be sent to Iben's house to ensure the safety of her children, demonstrating his deep commitment to resolving this harrowing incident. The plot is set to be a consuming tale of suspense, showcasing the unexpected and often hidden dramas that unfold within the confines of an emergency call center. Asger's transformation from a bored, detached operator to a fiercely dedicated savior forms the theme for this intense and compelling narrative. We soon see a pivotal moment where Asger reaches out to his colleague Torben, and he begins by offering an apology for his recent behavior, acknowledging that he hadn't been himself. After clearing the air, Asger inquires about a technical detail, which was a question about him being able to receive his previous calls if he switched computers. Torben reassures him that he would, as long as he remained logged into his account. Feeling the need for privacy and space, Asger then moves to another room, isolating himself to make a critical phone call. He dials his boss, with whom he shares a close relationship with, as evidenced by their laughter and casual conversation. However, the tone shifts as Asger requests a favor. He asks his boss to break into Michael's house, the suspected kidnapper, in hopes of finding evidence or clues about the abducted woman. His boss, however, was not amused, and he strongly reminds Asger that his role is strictly to receive calls and to pass them to relevant teams and to not take matters into his own hands. He also mentions the possibility of Asger returning to his previous street duty, a position Asger had previously expressed interest in. Despite his clear disappointment, Asger agrees and ends the call. Unable to let go of the case, Asger's thoughts remain fixated on Iben's scenario. In a bold move, he decides to call Michael the kidnapper directly, and posing as a police officer, he inquires about Iben, stressing that her children are alone at home. Michael's cold and detached response only fuels Asger's frustration. When Asger confronts him with the knowledge of Iben's abduction, Michael abruptly hangs up, leaving Asger in a state of heightened anxiety. He's further aggravated by the limitations of his computer system, which takes time to pinpoint Michael's location, time that they don't have since Michael ended the call. In a subsequent attempt to progress the case, Asger calls another colleague, Rashid, and asks him to go to a specific location in Armar, urgently needing assistance. However, their conversation takes an unexpected turn when Asger hears the sound of glasses clinking in the background. Concerned, he questions Rashid's professionalism, especially since Rashid is due to be a key witness in a court case the following morning. Rashid's admission to having a few drinks lead to a heated exchange, as Asger knows that a hungover witness is not credible in court. Eventually, Rashid's assurance that he only had a small amount calms Asger's nerves. They refocus on the task at hand, with Asger providing the crucial location details for the immediate assistance required. Soon after, we see a significant development in the story. Asger is approached by his superior with an urgent update. A young girl needs to speak to him, and Asger, intuitively knowing that it's Mathilde, the daughter of the abducted woman Iben, promptly takes the call. When Mathilde speaks to Asger, she informs him that someone was at the door. Realizing that it must be the patrol that he sent earlier, Asger instructs her to let them in. The police officers introduce themselves to Mathilde and then speak with Asger over the phone. The situation takes a grim turn when one of the officers notices blood on Mathilde's hand, a disturbing detail that relates to Asger. Deeply concerned, Asger urgently requests one of the officers to stay with Mathilde for her safety and sends the other one to check on her baby brother. The next revelation was harrowing, as the police discovered the baby tragically dead, with his body horrifically mutilated. Overwhelmed by the gruesome scene, the officer informs Asger of the situation and hangs up, unable to cope with the distressing sight. Asger, visibly shaken and saddened by the news, draws the blinds in his office, seeking solitude as he grapples with the night's events. Despite the emotional toll, he makes another call to Michael, the suspected kidnapper and father of the children. In this tense conversation, Asger confronts Michael about the heinous act committed against his own son, and he demands Michael to stop the car and reveal his location. Michael, in a desperate attempt to bargain, inquires about the consequences that he would face if he complies, and Asger, maintaining his integrity and honesty, asserts that Michael will face imprisonment. Frustrated and angered by Asger's straightforward response, Michael ends the call abruptly. Meanwhile, Asger's colleague Rashid, following Asger's instructions, arrives at Michael's residence. He breaks into the house, noticing that the door was open, a sign that the perpetrator left in haste. Asger, still on the line with Rashid, instructs him to investigate further and then ends the call, determined to uncover the truth and bring resolution to the harrowing case. In this intense segment of the movie, Asger finds himself in a high-pressure situation. Alone in the office and deeply invested in the unfolding crises, he hastily answers a call, hoping it might be Iben, the abducted woman that he was desperately trying to help. But instead, he's greeted by the voice of a young girl who's injured her knee while biking. Impatient and preoccupied with the more pressuring matter at hand, Asger quickly dismisses her, advising her that he's busy, and he abruptly hangs up. The phone rings again, and to Asger's annoyance, it was the same girl calling back. He hastily instructs her not to call again, and admonishes her for biking when possibly intoxicated. Without waiting for a response, he ends the call, and the phone rings a third time, and Asger, now visibly frustrated, expects it to be the same girl. However, to his surprise and relief, it was Iben on the other line. She's weeping, terrified for her life, and craving to return to her children. Asger tries to reassure her, promising that no harm will come to her, and Iben, still in distress, tells him that she's blindfolded in the back of a van and can't see anything. In his haste to help, Asger accidentally calls his boss, and the boss, perplexed, questions why Asger was still at the office. Asger, realizing the mistake, quickly ends the call and redials, this time successfully connecting with the North dispatcher team. He urgently communicates Iben's situation and tries to provide her location, and the dispatcher asks for more precise details, but Asger promises to get the exact location soon, urging the dispatcher to prepare to move the patrol. Returning to his call with Iben, Asger verifies her presence and reassures her that help is on the way and that she'll be safely returned home. Sensing the need for a contingency plan, he advises her to find something to defend herself with, and Iben informs him that she's found a brick inside a cage. Asger commends her for her resourcefulness and instructs her to use the brick against her ex-husband Michael if he approaches her. But Iben was hesitant, expressing her inability to commit such an act. Asger, in an attempt to calm her and distract her from the harrowing situation, begins to invent stories, weaving narratives to help her momentarily escape her dire reality. This scene intensifies when Iben, on the phone with Asger, suddenly reverts to her old fears. She informs him that the van she'd been held captive in has stopped, and Asger, consistent in his attempts to comfort and reassure her, encounters a disturbing twist. Iben begins to speak incoherently about her son Olivia, and in a confused state, she mentions a snake in her baby's belly that causes him constant distress, and she also reveals that she removed it herself. This shocking admission leads Asger to a heart-stopping realization. He asks her directly if she was responsible for harming her baby, and upon confirming his suspicions, he's overcome with disbelief and shock. Asger's thoughts are interrupted by another call, and this time from his colleague Rashid. Rashid shares important information regarding Iben and Michael's situation. He reveals that Michael had been legally banned from seeing his children, and that Iben had previously been a patient at a psychiatric facility. This new information leads Asger to understand that Michael is likely taking Iben back to the psychiatric center, a prospect that she's desperately trying to avoid. Feeling overwhelmed by the developments, Asger tells Rashid to go home, believing that the situation is now beyond their control. However, the search for Iben continues to be challenging. Eventually, Asger is asked to speak with Iben again, and in a weary voice, she confronts the possibility that she might have killed her son. Asger, struggling with the situation, gently confirms that her actions, though tragic, were unintentional, and he attempts to ascertain her location, but the call gets disconnected before he could succeed. In a final surprising twist, Asger contacts the Northern Dispatch team to update them on the situation, only to learn that Iben has turned herself in to the police. She is now safe with them, and upon hearing this, Asger removes his headset and stands up, with a mix of relief and sadness evident in his manner. The movie concludes with Asger walking toward the door, an emotional scene that leaves us reflecting on the complex and often hidden challenges faced by those in emergency response roles. The story's ending underscores the emotional and psychological toll of such work, while also heightening the unexpected and often tragic twists that can occur in these high-stakes situations. I hope you guys enjoyed the recap. Make sure to leave me a like, leave a comment, also subscribe to my channel. I love you guys so much, and I promise to see you on my next recap. Bye!